Good morning.
Hi.
Morning. How's everybody?
John's surprised look. You know how you roll around in a chair and you're like, oh, hi,
Oh,
are you
wait.
there?
We're on
This is like
Didn't
Facebook
expect
Live.
to see you here this morning, y'all.
This thing goes live.
Hey, by the way, before we go any further, Amy's back today. It was her birthday yesterday. Amy, we love
Yay!
you. Happy
Thank you.
birthday.
It was fun. Thanks, guys.
Okay,
It's a
I'm
little
27,
less
cool.
right?
exciting when you get a little older. So
27, right? 27 years old.
27 for the 15th, 16th.
Well, you look incredible and you're amazing, and we love you. So,
Thank you.
all right, I'll give you a good weather report here for your day after your birthday celebrations. Sunny and comfortable today. Today's gonna be a really nice day. Look at that gorgeous view downtown.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Well, let me do the weather, Felicia. I don't want your commentary. No, blue sky, a great downtown view right there, and comfortable too. If you step out the door, a little not chilly this morning, but it feels nice. Low dew points throughout the day today. We'll get to 85 degrees, probably for your high temperature. Sunny and comfortable, just really a nice day. The humidity starts to return tomorrow. Let's look at the next 7 days, because really today is one of the last days without high dew points for a while. Friday, muggy, and we get some storms in the afternoon. Saturday looks like okay, and actually Sunday doesn't look too bad either. They're going to have high humidity, but not too bad. But we start to get some like sweltering heat in here Monday and Tuesday, which makes sense because it's the start of July, and it is really going to feel warm and muggy out there with temperatures in the low 90s and scattered storms on and off. So enjoy today. It's going to be great.
Great.
Okay, John, we'll do just that. It actually does look amazing.
Yep.
Let's continue the day with important conversations that we're having right here on the Jam. We want to welcome in David Goldenberg from the Anti-Defamation League. He's actually the Midwest Regional Director. We also want to welcome in Dr. Howard Henderson. He's Director of the Center for Justice Research at Texas Southern University. They somewhat have aligned objectives, and we want to discuss just how they are doing during this time and how they're moving forward and advancing the conversation. So let's start with ADL. Can you further explain what their goals and objectives are?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Felicia. And I want to thank all of you for having me on this morning. And I really want to thank the team at the Jam for making this issue such a priority. ADL was founded in 1913, actually right here in Chicago, as a leading anti-hate organization with really a dual-pronged mission. The first was to stop the defamation of the Jewish people. And the second is to ensure fair and just treatment for all. And our feeling is that second part of our mission is critically important at this really important time. And we fight bigotry and biases, we fight anti-Semitism, we fight extremism, and we fight cyber and online hate. We do it through education, we do it through trainings, investigations, and advocacy.
I'm sure everyone's heard, that famous quote about, they came for me and no one was there to stand for me. I imagine that's part of what the ADL's mission is that hatred anywhere is a threat to all of us everywhere.
John, you're absolutely correct. I mean, the ADL was formed as a response to lynchings that were going on in the South and the feeling that there is an absence of sort of political strength and the need for change and dramatic change. The unfortunate thing is that mission that I just described to you, we could all sit down on a whiteboard right now and we could probably write an organization's mission with a very similar mission. And so the reality is that hate against anyone is hate against everywhere. And often when you find and look at kind of who those haters are, individual races or ethnicities or religions are typically not mutually exclusive. They tend to transcend across. And so when you find a hater, they tend to hate pretty much everyone.
Let me ask you this. How has social media changed your organization's plan of attack? Because I feel like there is so much hate on social media platforms.
And you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, social media and the internet really is the next wave. It's the next wave of hate. And long gone are those days where you kind of had to find a room in the darkness of the night to find extremists who shared your value. Now we just pick this thing up right here, right? And within a matter of seconds, you can be on a chat page or a website and have access to extremist language, ideology, symbols that you never would have imagined. And I think it takes on sort of a whole new a whole new sort of generation of haters, shall we say? I mean, because even if you look at the most extreme incidents, the shootings at the Tree of Life or in El Paso or in Christchurch, insert, these massacres that occurred, none of them were necessarily like card-carrying members of a hate group. These were individuals who went online, who were inspired by the things, typically right-wing ideology that they were reading online, and believed that they were going to take action. But it wasn't like they were meeting up online to connect with people who shared those extreme values, not just sort of in their backyard, but across the world. And so again, these weren't necessarily card-carrying members. And so I use that kind of as an example. But then the second piece that I'll add too is, right now, I mean, kids have been at home from a COVID perspective for quite some time and spending a lot more time online. And so we can come back to this later, but it becomes incumbent too upon parents to making sure that what their kids are watching. And ADL has really, we've gone so far as we opened up something called the Center for Extremism and Technology out in Silicon Valley to work with tech companies on their algorithms to push down hate. And we just recently launched a campaign with the NAACP, Colors of Change, and a number of other organizations calling on companies to stop advertising on Facebook in the month of July until Facebook changes their hate policies or hate speech.
It's interesting though, Dave, because here we are on Facebook, right? And a lot of the organizations in the Black Lives Matter movement organize peaceful protests that effected change through social media. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Look, social media and the internet and the social media and our phones have changed the way we communicate and connect with one another. And they are incredible tools with incredible power and incredible might. And at the same time, our view on it is just because you're providing this great network and system, it doesn't eliminate your responsibility that you have and to try to regulate to a certain extent how your platform is being used. Do you want it to be used for good, or do you want it to be used for bad? And that's where we often, our Center for Technology for Society works with tech companies and online platforms to look at their user agreements, to give them the ability when somebody clicks, yes, I agree to these agreements when they open up an account, it gives the company the ability and the standing to say, we're not going to let you use our platform to espouse hate views and hate speech. Instead, we're going to flag your account. Here's a warning. And if you keep doing it, we're going to shut you down. And that's where we think that tech companies can do that without, stomping down on the First Amendment or anything like that, but instead saying, we're not going to let you use our technology and platform to, further and advance your hateful messaging.
Today marks 1 month since the killing of George Floyd. What is your organization doing to kind of capitalize on the momentum we're seeing in this movement that's been rising?
And Brandon, thanks for that. And in Minnesota, by the way, is in the region that I cover, and so we have a lot of friends and relationships. We have relationships with community groups. We have relationships with law enforcement. We have relationships with faith leaders in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And the murder of George Floyd was a very direct and very clear example of the systemic racism that plagues our society, and frankly, the double standard policing practices that we've seen play out, whether it be in Chicago, whether it be with Breonna Taylor in Louisville, and obviously with George Floyd. And so for us as an organization, it's a moment where it's important for us to show up, but showing up means a number of things. Number one, we've been listening a lot, listening to our partners in the Black community and other communities of color about what do they view as the problems and where can we add our voice and be most helpful. We've been speaking out, making sure that when these incidents arise, that we are speaking out loudly and doing it in unison as much as humanly possible. Number one, we've also been trying to take action. We've been trying to show up. I marched in a number of protests down the streets of Chicago. Our leaders, our volunteer leaders, and our staff in visuals and protests and marches across the city. And then the last piece too is from an education perspective, we've been trying to highlight educational resources that are made available through our partners in the Black community and our partners in other communities of color. We've dedicated our social media channels to promoting and lifting up those voices and having different conversations and tough conversations about what it means to live with privilege as a white male in our society and what responsibility I have to recognize that. and how we then go about affecting change and doing so in a way that is in partnership and frankly in support of those communities that have been most affected by systemic racism.
Okay, David, we got to say thank you just for those tangible ways that you guys are moving forward, advancing the conversation. I keep explaining to everyone how I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm so happy everyone's paying attention, but to be able to not only do that in this moment, but to continue that message till we are eradicating all hate is important.
Yeah, Felicia, I really appreciate that. And I would encourage folks, if you go to midwest.adl.org, we have about 100 different resources on there. So if you've got 5 minutes, you can spend 5 minutes learning and how you can take effect. If you got 20 minutes, you can spend more time. So would encourage folks to take a look at. We've got a lot of resources that we've gotten from different groups and community groups in Chicago and other groups that you can support.
Well, as he just said, thank you, David. As he just said, make sure you're checking out their website, chicago.adl.org. Of course, their social media has a lot of things, resources at your fingertips. So make sure you check them out on Facebook and Twitter, as well as Instagram. David, thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me.
Guys, I'm so torn about the idea of censoring people on social media or correcting facts. Like, I get it, and promoting hate speech can have really negative consequences, but we're seeing the emergence of the Parler app, which is going to be an app like Twitter just for conservatives. I just hate the idea of all of us retreating further into our own bubbles.
Right.
And that the social discourse just completely goes away. Like, if someone says something hateful on Facebook, at least we all can see it. On Twitter, we all can see it. We can react to it. There can be some pushback or something. If it's going to be a bunch of hate-filled people together in their own room, oh boy, that worries me a little bit.
Right, because it just fuels the anger, right? I mean, if you feed into people's exactly what they want, it makes them want to act. And I worry that, that's a problem too. I like that Twitter has started flagging, like even the president's stuff, to make sure that people, check themselves if they're reading stuff and agreeing with it too.
Yeah, and seeing a lot of that toxicity on social media, it can impact your mental health. And I think it's important that people recognize that Black people in general, they tend to push aside their mental health more than others, while being 20% more likely to have mental health issues. That's according to the National Institute on Mental Health, so minority mental health. So I caught up with Dr. Udine Harry. She's talking about why mental health matters, especially in a time where people are seeing a lot of racial trauma.
Because it's actually a big part of our physical health. And we have so many studies now, it's like study after study after study that says it has a negative impact on our heart. It has a negative impact on our blood pressure, our blood sugar, all the things that we struggle with, like diabetes and heart disease. Mental health plays a huge role in that. And so the concern is that if we're not addressing our mental health, there's no way we can get control of our physical health.
How does someone know if they're dealing with, depression or anxiety or another mental health issue?
And that's a good question. When you're starting to live in a constant state of anxiety and depression, when you're starting to feel that there is no way out, when you're starting to feel really hopeless about a situation, when you're starting to feel just sad all the time, whether it's related to an event or not, it's impacting your sleep. It's impacting your relationships. These are all times to really start paying attention to your mental health. And I know as a community, we tend to have an issue with seeking help because somehow we feel we should be managing it ourselves, and it means that we're not strong enough and all the other things that go into that. But that really is the furthest thing from the truth. So I'm really advocating for us to pay attention to that.
What are some practical things we can do right now to improve our mental health?
Well, practical things that we can do is recognize when you are overwhelmed and in that space. Currently, there's so much information right now, right? So we have all the medias and we have television. It's information overload, and there's no one that I know of who can immerse themselves in all of this information and that keeps coming at us and not to start getting overwhelmed. So ultimately, identify what your limits are and disconnect. Honestly, getting activity is so important in helping us because it changes our neurochemistry. It actually changes the chemical in the brain and our bodies and actually helps us to get in a better mood.
Those are some practical tips there. Exercise is obviously a big one. Lots of mental health resources out there. We've talked about Google and how they're improving resources as well to get you access and connections to mental health resources around you. But it's really important in times like this when you're seeing these videos and all this stuff coming about. You got to think about how that's affecting your mental health.
Yeah, I know people that specifically have not watched the video. They have not watched the murder of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and all the other videos that we have, just because it is so difficult. It's so difficult. And I think as a person of color, we're walking around with these emotions and these feelings. And as we just heard, these mental disorders, and we're not even aware that this is not normal because it's been passed down from us to us from generation to generation.
Yeah, and it's not normal to have videos circulating of people dying. Like that just, that's kind
well,
of,
but we've normalized it in this society.
Exactly.
That's one of the reasons why I have not watched the When They See Us documentary of the Central Park Five, because I'm familiar with the story. I know what happened with the story, and it's traumatic. I haven't watched it because I haven't felt like I was in the place mentally and emotionally to be able to consume media like that. And it's a real life story. It's happening day in and day out.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, Felicia, to that, I have not watched the entire video of George Floyd because I'm so bothered by it. I can't have that image in my head all the time. I've seen pictures and I watched part of it and then I had to turn it off because I knew it was going to happen, obviously, right?
It's tough.
It's hard for everybody.
Yeah. It's important to disconnect when you can, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Coming up at 11 a.m. First of all, I'm going to be at Trader Todd's, which is a karaoke wing place near Wrigley Field. And I will be doing all of those things. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, we need a little laugh, John. I'm looking forward to that.
And Brian McKnight's coming on. I mean, come on. We got
Brian McKnight!
Legends. Young Dylan, too. Young Dylan, Nickelodeon star, Tyler Perry show on Nickelodeon. He's pretty popular with the kids, so that should be fun as well.
Yeah, we'll see you guys at 11.
Oh, I got to fix my makeup for Brian, y'all.